Long before churches built their altars and empires carved their laws, whispers of a prophecy passed in secret among the Gnostics. It spoke of an Aeon not yet awakened, a force that would not descend with the first emanations from the pleroma, but would rise at the end, when humanity had nearly forgotten its origin. They called it the last Aeon, not because it was least, but because it would arrive when the world most needed remembrance. Picture the ancient scrolls buried in caves, the fragile ink fading with time. Among them, fragments hint at an unfinished story. Eons of light, like Sophia, Barbello and Nous, were known and named. But then comes silence, a gap as though something was hidden deliberately. Was it fear that kept it concealed? Was it because the last Aeon was too dangerous for archons to allow humanity to know? Or was it because the time of its revealing had not yet come? This prophecy is not about a single savior walking among men. It is about a collective force, a living Aeon rising inside every soul. For the last Aeon would not be birthed in heaven, but remembered on earth. It would awaken not through temples or rulers, but through the quiet revolt of sparks rekindling their light. And so, the prophecy begins with absence. For the Aeon is not revealed while humanity is strong, but when it is fractured, when the world groans under tyranny, when false lights saturate the heavens, when despair grips nations, and the voice of truth grows faint. Only then does the last Aeon stir. It is always born in crisis. The Gnostics foresaw this age, wars that devour innocence, technologies that enslave more than they free, religions that silence rather than liberate. They saw humanity not just asleep, but drowning in illusions, unable to distinguish counterfeit from truth. And yet, they said, in this darkness, the last Aeon will shine brightest. This prophecy is not an escape, but a mirror. It does not promise that the world will be saved by miracle. It demands that the soul remembers its role in the miracle itself. The Aeon is not somewhere else. It is within you, waiting. The last Aeon is the revelation that no archon can erase. It is the prophecy that no empire can silence. And once it awakens, nothing in the cosmos will remain the same. So I ask you, what if the missing piece of the Gnostic story is not behind us, but ahead of us? What if you are living in the very age the ancients foresaw, and the last Aeon is already pressing against the veil of your memory? Every great emergence is preceded by silence. Just as the monad emanated creation from stillness, so too does the last Aeon gestate in the hush before awakening. It is like the moment before dawn, when shadows cling desperately to the earth, unaware that light is inevitable. The silence of this age is not peace, it is suppression. Voices are drowned in noise, truth buried beneath endless distractions, the spark smothered beneath layers of false identity. The archons thrive in this silence because it is not empty, it is heavy. It is filled with programming, fear, and counterfeit light. They mistake it for victory. But beneath the silence, something moves. The last Aeon is not dormant, it is gestating. Every moment of despair becomes the womb in which its power grows. Every act of tyranny becomes the pressure that pushes it closer to birth. The archons do not realize that by tightening their grip, they are only accelerating the emergence of what they fear most. The Gnostic texts often spoke in symbols, rivers of fire, trees of knowledge, garments of light. If we read them with modern eyes, we see metaphors not for far-off heavens, but for states of consciousness. The last Aeon is the same, not an external being descending from on high, but the sudden flowering of remembrance within the soul. The silence before its birth is deceptive. It feels like nothing is happening. It feels like despair will continue forever. But every seeker knows that the darkest part of night comes just before the dawn. The demiurge counts on our hopelessness. The last Aeon counts on our endurance. In this silence, the soul is asked to wait, to listen beneath the noise, to feel the stirrings of something larger than thought. For the Aeon does not arrive in spectacle, it arrives in awareness, in the quiet uprising of sparks remembering together. And when it comes, the silence will break, not with chaos but with recognition. The last Aeon is born not as thunder, but as a chorus of souls suddenly remembering who they are. So I ask you, are you listening beneath the silence? Do you feel the pressure building, the stillness trembling? For within this silence is the seed of the greatest awakening humanity has ever known. The ancient Gnostics described the eons as emanations of divine fullness, each with a purpose, each holding an aspect of the eternal. But the last Aeon is unlike the others. It is not assigned to the early unfolding of creation. It is reserved for the great return. It is the Aeon of restoration. Imagine a spark buried deep in coal. For ages it lies dormant, smothered, forgotten. And yet with the right breath, with the right moment, it ignites into flame. The last Aeon is that spark, hidden within humanity, waiting for the breath of remembrance. Its rising does not depend on temples or prophets. It rises wherever a soul dares to question the illusion. It rises in the artist who paints truth through symbol. It rises in the seeker who pierces through dogma. It rises in the child who refuses to be silenced. The last Aeon is collective. It awakens in all who dare to remember. This is why it is feared. The archons can suppress a teacher, crucify a prophet, burn a text, but they cannot extinguish an awakening that happens everywhere, at once in the hearts of many. The last Aeon is not one voice, it is a chorus, and no amount of censorship can silence a chorus that emerges from within. The Gnostics hinted at this when they spoke of seeds of light scattered throughout the cosmos. They knew that when enough sparks remembered, something greater would emerge. The last Aeon is not a future event. It is the collective flowering of those seeds in this very age. And its rising will not look like power as the world defines it. It will not be armies or empires. It will be vision. It will be gnosis. It will be a strength so quiet, so enduring that no weapon can touch it. When the last Aeon rises, the world of illusion begins to tremble, for it cannot be bribed, cannot be threatened, cannot be deceived. It remembers too deeply, and in that remembrance, the counterfeit God's throne begins to crack. So I ask you, do you feel it stirring inside you? Do you sense that the light you thought was gone has only been waiting? The last Aeon rises in silence first, but soon its flame will be undeniable. The rise of the last Aeon does not happen in silence alone. It awakens into a battlefield. But this war is not fought with swords or armies. It is fought with mirrors. The demiurge has built his empire out of reflections, illusions crafted to look like truth. He thrives in mimicry, creating false heavens, false lights, false identities. Every step the soul takes toward awakening, he counters with a mirror designed to distract. You see this in the religions that promise salvation but demand submission. You see it in philosophies that preach liberation but keep the seeker bound to endless analysis. You see it in the glittering lights of entertainment and technology, which soothe the hunger for truth with a steady drip of distraction. The war of mirrors is subtle, and that makes it deadly. For what is more dangerous than a prison that looks like freedom? The Gnostic texts warned that the archons were masters of imitation. They can reproduce form, but never essence. They can craft dazzling images, but not the spark of life. Their power is borrowed, not emanated. But the human soul, forgetting this, often mistakes reflection for reality. And so, billions live in the demiurge's hall of mirrors, chasing images that never satisfy, worshipping shadows as though they were the source. The last Aeon rises as the breaker of mirrors. It awakens in the soul as the power to see through imitation. It whispers, "Not every light is true, not every voice is yours, not every heaven is divine." It sharpens perception, giving seekers the eyes to distinguish between reflection and radiance. And once you learn to see clearly, the mirrors lose their spell. But the war is not external alone, it rages inside. Each time you chase an identity built from fear, you feed the mirror. Each time you believe a thought rooted in shame, you feed the mirror. Each time you measure your worth by the standards of a broken world, you kneel before reflection instead of truth. The demiurge does not need armies, he only needs your agreement. And this is where the last Aeon speaks with fire. It demands that you turn away from reflection, even if the reflection feels safe. It demands that you break with false comforts, even if they feel warm. It demands that you abandon counterfeit light, even when it glitters. For the soul cannot awaken if it continues to drink from poisoned wells. Stern is the call, but liberating is its result. The prophecy says the last Aeon will not flatter humanity, it will test it. It will strip away the illusions you cling to. It will hold a mirror to the mirror until you can no longer deny the difference between shadow and substance. This is its fierce mercy. For only when the false is shattered can the true be revealed. So I ask you, how many mirrors have you been living inside? How many illusions have you mistaken for light? And are you ready to let the last Aeon burn them away, even if it costs you your comfort? For only those who dare to lose the false will inherit the true. If the demiurge built the Hall of Mirrors, the archons are the keepers of the veil. They stand like sentinels between the soul and remembrance, weaving nets of distraction, fear, and desire. The Gnostic texts called them rulers of the false heavens, parasites of consciousness who feed on forgetfulness. And it is their veil that the last Aeon comes to tear apart. The veil is not stitched from cloth, it is stitched from thought. It is the whisper that says you are only flesh, that you are temporary, that you are powerless. It is the endless carousel of needs and fears that spins you in circles until you forget to ask who is spinning it. It is the glitter of material success that blinds you to the treasure already within. The veil is not heavy, it is convincing, and that makes it more dangerous than any chain. The archons know that humanity carries the divine spark. They cannot destroy it, so they distract it. They flood the senses with noise, flood the mind with programming, flood the heart with fear. Every moment you are kept busy, every moment you are kept afraid, every moment you are kept divided. The veil grows stronger, and the soul remains veiled not because of lack of power, but because of lack of sight. Yet the last Aeon was prophesied as the one who pierces the veil. It does not come with violence, but with sight sharper than illusion. It reveals the archons for what they are, shadows feeding on attention, parasites that lose power the moment they are recognized. Their veil has no authority over the one who sees clearly, and the last Aeon awakens in every soul that dares to open its eyes. The tearing of the veil is not without cost. It requires the soul to face truths long avoided. It requires you to see the false comfort you clung to, the counterfeit light you served, the fears you let guide your path. This is why awakening feels like fire. It burns away what you thought was you until only the spark remains. But this fire is not destruction. It is purification. The archons tremble at this. For every time a soul pierces the veil, their grip weakens. Every act of remembrance sends a ripple through the collective, thinning the fabric of illusion. The last Aeon is not a single event, it is a tide. Each spark that remembers adds to the swell, until the veil tears not just for one, but for all. The Gnostics warned that the archons would resist to the end. They will invent new distractions, new fears, new divisions to hold the veil in place. But prophecy is prophecy. What is born of illusion cannot withstand eternity. The veil will fall. The only question is whether you will see through it now or be dragged when it collapses. So I ask you, are you ready to face what hides behind the veil? Are you willing to let the illusions burn away, even if they once felt like truth? For the last Aeon rises not in those who cling, but in those who dare to see. When the veil begins to thin, something extraordinary stirs. Memory. Not the fragile recollection of human days, but the deep remembrance of the soul. It is the kind of memory that feels older than language, more ancient than the stars. It arrives not as thought but as recognition, sudden moments when the heart whispers, "I have known this before." This is the awakening the Gnostics spoke of, when the spark remembers its origin in the pleroma. The demiurge cannot touch this memory. He can obscure it with noise, bury it beneath layers of illusion, drown it with fear, but he cannot erase it. For the memory is woven into the spark itself. It is the signature of eternity carried within each soul. It waits patiently, sometimes for lifetimes, for the moment when silence opens and recognition floods in. And when memory awakens, the world shifts. Suddenly, the things that once felt solid seem hollow. The chains that once felt unbreakable feel brittle. The promises of false lights lose their lure, for when you remember the fullness, the counterfeit pales in comparison. You begin to see not with the eyes of flesh, but with the eyes of spirit. And the world, once a prison, begins to look like a dream ready to be transcended. This memory does not come as information but as presence. It is the feeling of standing beneath the stars and sensing that you are not small but vast. It is the moment of silence so deep that it feels like home. It is the sudden tear in the heart that is not sadness, but recognition of something you lost and are now reclaiming. This is the last Aeon awakening, not in theory, but in lived experience. The Gnostics described this as gnosis, knowledge not taught, but remembered, and they insisted it was the only true salvation. For what external savior could free you if you still forgot who you are? What heaven could liberate you if you did not remember your origin? The last Aeon comes not to save you from outside, but to awaken what is already within. As this memory spreads, the archons grow desperate. They know their illusions cannot withstand recognition. They know that once a soul remembers, it no longer feeds them, and so they intensify their efforts. Louder distractions, deeper fears, brighter counterfeit lights. But no amount of illusion can overshadow true remembrance, for the spark, once lit, cannot be unlit. The awakening of memory is contagious. One soul remembering inspires another, like torches igniting in a long-forgotten cavern. Soon, what was once darkness begins to glow. This is how the last Aeon rises, not as a single flame, but as a fire that spreads unstoppable through the collective soul of humanity. So I ask you, what memories stir in you when you are silent? What whispers reach you when the noise falls away? Do you feel the ancient pull, the recognition that you are more than this world has told you? That is the last Aeon calling from within, and the more you answer, the brighter the remembrance becomes. When the last Aeon rises through remembrance, it does not only awaken individuals, it begins to unravel worlds. For the illusions of the demiurge are not confined to thoughts and feelings. They are embedded in systems, cultures, religions, and empires. And when the Aeon of truth stirs, these false structures cannot withstand its gaze. What is built on illusion must fall. What is rooted in lies must collapse. This is the judgment of illusions. The ancients spoke of it in symbols, stars falling from the sky towers collapsing, thrones overturned. These were not only visions of cosmic upheaval, but of spiritual dismantling. The last Aeon does not bring destruction for its own sake, it brings revelation. And revelation is the death of illusion. When you see clearly, you cannot unsee. When truth shines, falsehood dissolves. This is judgment, not by punishment but by exposure. You can already feel it in this age. Systems that once seemed unshakable begin to crack. Religions once unquestioned now reveal their shadows. Governments once worshipped now stumble under their own corruption. Economies built on exploitation begin to falter. The world insists these are political or social upheavals, but beneath the surface, something greater is at work. The last Aeon is pressing against the veil, and illusion is trembling. The Archons panic in these moments. They scramble to reinforce the lies, to distract the masses with spectacle, to lure the seekers back into sleep. They promise new solutions, but all their solutions are mirrors of the same illusion. They cannot create, they can only recycle. And so their systems fail again and again, because what is counterfeit cannot endure the flame of remembrance. The Gnostics foresaw this collapse. They taught that the world of the demiurge would one day unravel, not by cataclysm but by revelation. The counterfeit can only hold so long as it is mistaken for truth. But when enough sparks awaken, when enough souls pierce the veil, the collective illusion fractures. The empire of the Archons does not end with fire from heaven, it ends with humanity remembering. This judgment is fierce, but it is merciful. It strips away what cannot serve the soul, leaving only what is real. It reveals the hollowness of systems that fed on fear, so that the soul can finally feed on light. It exposes the counterfeit gods so that the true source can be known again. It burns, yes, but the fire of truth is a purifying flame, not a consuming one. And yet this moment demands courage. For many will cling to the collapsing illusions, defending them even as they turn to dust. Many will fear the revelation, mistaking the fall of falsehood for the end of all things. But those who remember, those who awaken, will see it clearly. It is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the prophecy fulfilled. So I ask you, what illusions are you still clinging to? What false systems do you still feed with your belief? And are you willing to let them fall, even if the world trembles around you? For the judgment of illusions is not coming, it is here. And the last Aeon asks only this: will you choose truth, or will you cling to shadows? The last Aeon does not rise in isolation, it awakens into a chorus. For the Aeons are not rivals but syzygies, paired harmonies of divine powers, emanations of the pleroma that always move together in balance. Each Aeon holds a tone in the eternal symphony: mind, truth, life, grace, silence, and Sophia herself. And when the last Aeon rises, its note joins the song, completing what was once unfinished. Imagine a great lyre stretched across the cosmos. For ages, some of its strings have been muted, their resonance forgotten beneath the noise of archonic illusions. Humanity has heard fragments of the melody, echoes of wisdom, glimpses of fullness, but never the complete song. The last Aeon is the missing string, the vibration that restores the harmony. When it sounds, the scattered notes of the other Aeons find alignment, and the music of the pleroma swells once more. The Gnostics hinted at this hidden harmony when they wrote of the pleromatic fullness, where all things are united. They knew that the Aeons do not act alone, but as facets of a single radiant whole. Nous gives clarity, truth reveals essence, life flows through all, grace dissolves bondage, Sophia redeems what was lost. And now, the last Aeon enters, binding them together in a crescendo of remembrance. This is not music the ears can hear, it is music the soul remembers. It is the shiver that runs through you when silence feels alive. It is the resonance you feel when words of wisdom pierce deeper than thought. It is the harmony of your being aligning with something greater, something eternal. This is the song of the eons, and it is rising now. The archons cannot imitate this song. They can create noise. They can flood the world with distractions. They can mimic fragments of light, but they cannot produce harmony. For harmony is born of essence, and essence is beyond their reach. This is why the song of the eons dissolves their illusions so easily. It does not need to fight, it only needs to sound, and the false notes fall away. When the last eon enters the chorus, humanity will feel it as a shift both subtle and seismic. Old wounds will feel less final. Forgotten dreams will stir again. A longing for truth will surge stronger than the hunger for illusion. The world will seem both more fragile and more luminous, for the song will remind the soul of what it has always known. We are not exiles. We are emanations of fullness, longing to return. This song is not distant. It is rising even now, in every act of remembrance, in every whisper of gnosis, in every soul that dares to turn inward. The eons sing through you, not above you. Their harmony is the resonance of your true self, awakening note by note, chord by chord, until the melody of the pleroma resounds again through all creation. So I ask you, can you hear it? Beneath the noise of the world, can you sense the faint chords building, the ancient harmony returning? The last eon does not come to sing alone. It comes to awaken the song within you, and when you join, the chorus becomes unstoppable. The demiurge sits upon a throne of lies. For ages he has ruled, not by true authority, but by convincing humanity that he alone is God. His crown is arrogance, his scepter is fear, his dominion is built from the obedience of the veiled. And yet, the prophecy of the last eon declares that these counterfeit thrones will not stand. For when truth awakens, deception collapses under its own weight. The shattering begins within. Each soul that remembers its spark withdraws power from the false throne. Every time you question the voice of false authority, a crack forms in his crown. Every time you choose truth over fear, another fracture spreads through the seat of his dominion. The demiurge is not sustained by his own strength. He is sustained by yours. And the last eon rises as the great reversal, the return of power from the counterfeit back to the source. The Gnostics foresaw this moment and cloaked it in cosmic imagery. They spoke of rulers trembling, of heavens shaking, of the firmament splitting apart. These were not only visions of the outer world, they were descriptions of the collapse of inner illusions. When the last eon pierces the veil, the very foundation of the demiurge's rule trembles. His counterfeit heavens were never stable. They survive only as long as no one looks too closely. But the last eon forces the gaze. It turns the light directly upon the throne, and what is revealed is pitiful. Not a god of eternity, but an imitator born of ignorance, terrified of exposure. He is not the father of creation, but the child of error, pretending to be master of all. His thunderous claims dissolve into silence when the soul remembers its source in the pleroma. The counterfeit king is unmasked, and his court of archons scatters like shadows at dawn. Yet the shattering is not gentle. Illusions die hard, and those who cling to them will feel as though the world itself is ending. For when the systems you trusted collapse, when the gods you worshipped are revealed as false, when the heavens you longed for shatter like glass, it feels like death. But it is not death, it is liberation. The collapse of counterfeit thrones is the birth of true freedom. This is why the prophecy speaks in fire. The last eon comes not to comfort but to awaken. It comes as a flame that burns away idols, a storm that topples towers, a quake that shakes the foundations of every false dominion. But beneath the ruins lies the treasure long hidden, the remembrance of the eternal. The thrones must shatter for the soul to rise, and once shattered they cannot be rebuilt. For illusion depends on ignorance, and once truth is known, ignorance cannot return. The demiurge's empire may rage, but it will rage as a dying fire sputters, loud, bright, but already fading. The last Aeon does not battle him with force, it ends him with sight. For a lie cannot survive exposure, and a counterfeit cannot survive comparison to the true. So I ask you, what thrones still stand in your life? What false authorities still demand your belief? And are you ready to let them shatter, even if it shakes everything you thought was real? For when the false thrones fall, the sovereign soul rises, and the last Aeon fulfills its prophecy. The dawn does not arrive in thunder. It comes quietly, steadily, until the whole horizon is glowing. So it is with the last Aeon. It does not descend from the sky with spectacle. It awakens from within with certainty. One by one, souls begin to remember. One by one, sparks flare back into flame. And soon, what was once hidden is undeniable. The last Aeon has risen not above us but among us. This dawn is not about the end of the world. It is about the end of illusion. The counterfeit thrones fall silent, the veils tear, the mirrors shatter, and in their place arises something more ancient than time, the remembrance of fullness, the pleroma alive in the human heart. The last Aeon does not build a new empire. It dissolves empires altogether. It calls not for new rulers, but for the sovereignty of every soul. The prophecy speaks of restoration. What Sophia lost in longing is redeemed. What the demiurge twisted is straightened. What the archons sought to bury rises again. Humanity, once fractured by ignorance, begins to remember its wholeness. The dawn of the last Aeon is the dawn of union. Union with the source, union with the spark, union with the truth that was never absent, only forgotten. This awakening will not be welcomed by all. Those who have built their lives on counterfeit power will resist. Those who have profited from illusion will rage. But the dawn does not ask permission to rise. No hand can stop the sun. No shadow can prevent the light. And so, even as the old world resists, the new world of remembrance will shine all the brighter. The dawn of the last Aeon is not in the heavens. It is in you. Every moment you choose truth over fear, the Aeon rises. Every moment you listen to the silence within rather than the noise without, the Aeon rises. Every moment you remember that you are more than flesh, more than thought, more than history, the Aeon rises. The prophecy was never about waiting, it was always about awakening. And when enough sparks ignite, the darkness itself will be transformed. Not because the demiurge is defeated in battle, but because he is revealed as nothing more than shadow. Not because the archons vanish, but because their nets fall powerless before awakened vision. This is the dawn, not a war won, but a lie dissolved. The Gnostics dreamed of this day, and you are living in its beginning. The last Aeon is not somewhere else. It is here now, rising in you, in me, in all who dare to remember. The dawn is not coming. It is already breaking, and the only question that remains is, will you open your eyes to it? So I leave you with this. If these words stirred something deep in you, share this video so others may remember too. Subscribe if you feel called to walk this path of awakening with me. And if you long to explore further, I humbly invite you to check the link in the description for my Gnostic books. They are written not to give you answers, but to guide you into remembrance. For the dawn of the last Aeon is already here, and it lives within you.
realizar e é presente no momento que